She was humming something tuneless, like always when she was trying to fill the silence between us. It used to be charming. That dumb little hum meant she felt comfortable, safe, like the world outside didn't touch her when she was with me. But that day, in the car, it crawled under my skin. Not because of the sound itself, but because it felt rehearsed. It was the kind of hum a person makes when they've already decided on their next lie and just need to wait for the right moment to sell it. I wasn't supposed to pick her up that day. She said she had a late meeting. I only found out the meeting was canceled when her coworker Zoe posted a group selfie with the caption, "Escaping early with the real ones." There was my wife, front and center, not at any meeting, not doing anything work-related. Just sipping something pink and laughing like she hadn't told me she'd be stuck at the office till 7. I didn't message her. I didn't call. I waited. Drove straight to her office at the usual time. Let her think she was in control. She came out with that same bounce in her step, her bag slung over her shoulder like always, like nothing was wrong in the world. She slid into the passenger seat, leaned in to kiss me on the cheek, and I let her. I even smiled. It was that fake calm that makes people nervous because it doesn't belong on someone like me. I'm not a quiet guy. I'm not the type who hides behind politeness. But I was quiet then, because something had started pulling at threads I didn't even know were loose. She asked how my day was, and I said, "Unpredictable." That was the first jab. She didn't even flinch. But then, as we drove past the intersection where we usually turn left toward home, I took a right instead. She looked up from her phone. "Where are we going?" "To get answers," I said, still staring straight ahead. Her laugh was too sharp. "Are you being dramatic? You're always saying I overthink everything, and now you're acting like some bad detective in a movie." I didn't respond. She turned back to her phone, probably texting someone for a lifeline. And that's when she slipped. The car slowed at a red light, and in the lull of movement, her screen lit up again. Not a name this time, just a message. "I can't stop thinking about what you said. When can we talk again?" She saw me glance, tried to tilt her phone away casually, but it was too late. "Friend from work?" I asked. She blinked fast. Yeah, just Noah. He's going through something. You remember, I told you about him, right?" I didn't answer, because no, she hadn't. And even if she had, the way her voice tripped over the words told me the truth didn't live anywhere near her mouth in that moment. Then came the thing I didn't expect. Something so casual, so stupid, but it cracked everything wide open. "I adore everything about my wife," I said, turning toward her. But one day, while she was in the car, she accidentally revealed something I never expected. She smirked, confused. "What the hell are you talking about?" "You always keep your Bluetooth connected," I said. "And guess what auto-played when I started the car this morning?" There was a pause. Not long, but it was pregnant with panic. A voice note had played. Not mine, not hers. A man's voice. Soft, familiar in tone, like it had been heard many times. He said her name. He said something about last weekend. And then he laughed. Said he couldn't wait to do it again when your husband's out of town. I'd replayed it twice just to make sure I wasn't mishearing. I wasn't. Her expression changed in slow motion. From confusion to recognition to something feral. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry or apologize or do what you'd expect when someone's been caught. She smiled. A slow, venomous smile like she had been waiting for the day when the mask could finally fall. "You don't get it, do you?" she said, voice suddenly too calm. "You're not the victim here. You're the reason. You've been so predictable for so long, I stopped believing you were real. You want truth? Here it is, you got boring. And I got curious. The light turned green, but I didn't drive. Cars honked behind us. She didn't even flinch. She was watching me, waiting to see how far she could push. And something in me, something old, something that still loved the version of her that used to make me breakfast on Sundays and cry during documentaries, it broke. Clean in half. But I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I didn't give her the scene she probably wanted. Instead, I drove. I took her home. And said nothing the entire way. But I wasn't done. Because the real game, the real unraveling, hadn't even begun yet. When we got home, she walked in first like she always did, tossing her bag on the couch, kicking off her shoes, and heading straight for the fridge. She pulled out a bottle of white wine, her favorite, and poured a glass like it was any other Thursday. Like she hadn't just confessed to being unfaithful with the emotional flair of someone reading a grocery list. I didn't follow her into the kitchen right away. I stood in the hallway looking at our wedding photo on the wall. The one where she's laughing, eyes closed, veil caught in the wind. I used to think that photo was magic, a snapshot of something pure. Now it just looked like a still from a lie I didn't know I was starring in. When I finally stepped into the kitchen, she looked at me over the rim of her glass and said, "You going to sulk all night, or are we going to talk like adults?" Like adults. I pulled out a chair, sat across from her. No raised voices. No table pounding. I asked a simple question. "How long?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. Try me." She sighed, exasperated, as if my questions were inconveniencing her evening. "Couple months. Off and on." "His name is Noah." She grinned. "That's cute. You still believe I'd use his real name?" Silence. She took another sip, then leaned forward. "You really want the truth? Fine. I've seen a few people. It wasn't some grand romance or secret double life. It was, how do I put this, relief. From you. From this house. From the dead space between us. That's when it hit me. Not just the betrayal, but the weight of her indifference. It wasn't just about infidelity. It was about contempt. Quiet, festering contempt that had been sitting under the surface while I was busy planning anniversary trips and fixing the leaky faucet she'd been complaining about. "You didn't even try to fix it," I said. "You didn't talk to me. You just walked away in pieces." She laughed. Actually laughed. "You always want to talk. Like it's gonna glue everything back together." "I'm not broken. I was just bored." I stared at her. That word again. Bored. She was bored, so she shattered something we'd built for years like it was a toy she didn't want anymore. And what made it worse, what made it unbearable, was that she wasn't even hiding it. She wasn't ashamed. She was proud of her detachment. "You used to care," I said quietly. "No," she said, finishing her wine. "I used to pretend." That was the moment I realized I was sitting across from a stranger. Not someone who changed. Someone who'd always been this person underneath, waiting for the right excuse to stop pretending. I stood up, walked to the sink, poured myself a glass of water because my hands were shaking and I needed something to do with them. "I want you out," I said, back still turned. She didn't answer immediately. "You're not serious." I turned to face her. "By tomorrow." She looked amused. "And if I don't?" "You will." The smile faded just enough to show a crack. Not fear. Not guilt. Just the sudden awareness that she didn't control the game anymore. She set her glass down with a sharp clink and left the room. I didn't follow. I sat in the kitchen for a long time, not thinking, not feeling, just sitting in the echo of everything she said. She thought she'd killed something in me, but she only woke it up. This wasn't over, and the next move would be mine. She didn't leave the next day. Of course she didn't. Instead, she slept in, made herself coffee, and played music in the kitchen like nothing had happened. Like the night before had been some weird performance she forgot she participated in. I watched her from the hallway, leaned against the doorframe, and waited to see if she'd say anything. An apology, a question, even a lie. But she didn't. She just stirred her coffee, scrolling on her phone like she was on vacation. "You're still here," I said, not raising my voice. She didn't look up. "You're still talking." And that was it. That was all she gave me. She sat down at the kitchen table, legs crossed, sipping her drink like she was in some passive-aggressive standoff. I realized then this wasn't about infidelity anymore. This was war. Cold, deliberate, silent war. I could have screamed. I could have thrown her stuff out the window. But something in me had shifted. She wanted chaos. She wanted a scene. I gave her silence instead. The kind that makes people itch. Around noon, she started packing. Not frantically. Calmly. One drawer at a time, humming again like she always did when she needed background noise to drown out her own conscience. If she had one. I didn't ask where she was going. She didn't offer. But before she left, she dropped one more little match onto the pile of gasoline she'd been pouring for months. "You should have made this harder," she said from the doorway, suitcase in hand. I looked up from the couch. "What?" "You should have fought for me," she said, "instead of making it this easy to leave." That's when I snapped. Not loudly, not with fists or fury, just with truth. "I did fight for you," I said, "every day, when you were miserable and blamed it on work. When you stopped touching me and said it was just stress. When you looked through me like I was invisible. I stayed. I fought in silence while you buried us. So don't talk to me about easy. You've been gone for a long time. I'm just catching up." She didn't say anything, didn't flinch, just turned and walked out, heels clicking like punctuation marks on the end of a long, bitter sentence. The silence after she left was thick, heavy in the walls. I sat there for hours, not moving, not thinking, just letting the quiet settle like dust over everything. Then I did something I didn't plan. I went to her laptop. It was still there, still logged in. I hesitated, hand hovering over the trackpad. I didn't want more. I didn't want new knives in my chest. But I needed to see what I'd been living with. And what I found wasn't just betrayal, it was architecture. Blueprints of deception, detailed and deliberate. Messages, drafts, conversations with not one, not two, but 3 different men. 3 different versions of herself, tailor-made for each one. To one, she was a therapist type, helping him open up emotionally. To another, she was a wild spirit, the adventurous escape. And the third, he thought he was saving her from a loveless marriage with some dull, controlling husband who didn't understand her. Each message a performance, a script, a stage. And in none of them was I real. I was just a character she wrote out of her life to make room for more exciting fiction. I stared at those messages until the words blurred, until my hands started trembling in a way I couldn't control. She wasn't bored. She was hollow. And now she was gone. But the storm she left behind was just getting started. That night, I didn't sleep. Not a single minute. I just sat in the living room with her laptop open, surrounded by echoes of her digital double life, and let every message burn itself into my memory. It wasn't about masochism. I wasn't punishing myself. I was documenting, studying, dissecting the anatomy of a lie that had lived right under my roof for months. Maybe longer. Around 3 a.m., I found something I hadn't expected. A video. It was buried in an email thread she'd forgotten to delete, sent from one of her burner accounts to herself. The subject line was blank. No preview. Just a file titled "For You." I should have closed the laptop. But I didn't. I clicked. It started in a hotel room. I recognized the wallpaper. We'd stayed there once. An anniversary trip to the coast. She had gone back there. With someone else. Using our memories like stage props for her new acts. She wasn't in the video. Just her voice, low and intimate, coaxing whoever was behind the camera into some whispered inside joke. I couldn't hear all of it. Didn't want to. But I caught one line, clear as a bell, right before the video cut off. "He'd die if he knew." But honestly, I think he already does. I slammed the laptop shut. For the first time in this whole unraveling, I felt something dangerous stir inside me. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Something colder. Quieter. The kind of clarity that comes right before someone walks away from a burning house without looking back. She thought I was still in the dark. Still confused. Still flinching every time she tossed another spark in my direction. But I wasn't flinching anymore. I was watching. And I had started to understand the rules of her game. The next morning, I made 3 phone calls. First, to a lawyer. Just to open the door. Second, to Zoe, her coworker. The one who posted the photo of the meeting. Zoe and I had talked before, briefly, at an office party. She seemed kind, honest. I asked if she had a few minutes to talk. She did. What she told me changed everything. My wife hadn't just been lying to me. She'd been lying to everyone. She told her coworkers I was emotionally abusive, that I monitored her phone, that I manipulated her into marriage. Zoe didn't believe her, not really. But the words had been planted. Seeds of doubt. False sympathy. A whole false identity. I asked Zoe one question. "Do you know a man named Tyler?" The pause was long. Then she said, "Oh my God." She did. Tyler wasn't just some random guy. He was a client from a contract my wife had managed personally. He was married, older, wealthy, the kind of man who didn't send messages. He made arrangements, discreet ones. Zoe told me that last month, my wife had taken a week off for family stuff. She hadn't. She went to Miami with Tyler. Suddenly, the video made sense. The place, the voice, the smug confidence in her tone. She hadn't been hiding. She'd been escalating, daring me to catch on. After I hung up with Zoe, I made the third call. To my older brother, Nathan. Nathan and I aren't close. Different worlds, different lives. But he's always been the one I call when things get ugly. When I need someone who doesn't ask, "Are you okay?" Because he already knows I'm not. He picked up on the second ring. "I need you," I said. "I'm on my way," he replied. No questions. An hour later, he showed up with 2 coffees, a notebook, and the kind of quiet loyalty that only comes from blood. We sat at the kitchen table while I laid it all out. Everything. The video. The messages. The lies. The layers. The name Tyler. Miami. Nathan didn't react much. He's the type to take things in before speaking. When I finished, he asked me one thing. "Do you want revenge or resolution?" And I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure yet. But something inside me had already started turning gears. She left thinking I'd collapse, that I'd drown in the betrayal, spiral into some sobbing cliché of a man. She had no idea she'd just given me the sharpest clarity I've ever known. And I wasn't going to waste it. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence from her. No calls. No messages. Not even a courtesy email about where she'd gone. She vanished like a storm that tears through a city and leaves behind dust and broken signs. But I wasn't just sitting in the rubble. I was building something. Nathan stayed with me those nights. Not because I needed company, I didn't. I needed a second set of eyes. Someone calm. Someone ruthless when it counted. We built a timeline, mapped the messages, pulled IP data from email headers, traced hotel bookings, rideshare receipts. She hadn't covered her tracks. Not even close. She thought her charm would always shield her from consequences. On the 4th morning, I did something she wouldn't have seen coming. I texted her. "Come get the rest of your stuff. Noon. Don't be late." She replied 5 minutes later. "I'll be there. Keep your drama to yourself." Typical. But here's where it all started to turn. Noon came. She walked in wearing sunglasses, tight jeans, and that smirk she always wore when she thought she was 2 steps ahead. She didn't say hello, didn't look around the house, just walked straight to the bedroom and began shoving things into a bag. I waited in the living room. When she came out, I was sitting at the table with a folder in front of me. Not thick, not showy, just enough weight to make it real. She paused when she saw it. "What's that?" she asked. "Proof," I said, "of who you are." She laughed, tossed her bag on the floor. "You seriously put together a dossier on me? What are you, in a spy movie now?" I didn't answer. I just pushed the folder across the table. Inside was everything. The emails, screenshots, travel confirmations, hotel receipts in her name, billed to the credit card she forgot was still linked to our joint account. And the video, I didn't print that, but I wrote a full transcript, word for word, including the part where she said she thought I already knew. She read for longer than I expected. Her face didn't change much at first. But then came the moment, the shift. Her mouth moved, like she was forming a word, then stopped. She looked up at me, and for the first time since this all began, there was no smirk, no coldness, just something that looked small, almost afraid. "You went through my things," she said finally. "I went through my life," I said, "and found out you were borrowing it like a costume." She closed the folder, slowly, deliberately, then leaned forward. "You know what hurts most?" she said. "That you think this makes you better than me. That you think being the hurt one gives you the high ground. You think this is about a pedestal? I asked. This is about the truth. You lied so easily. For so long, you don't even know when you're doing it anymore. She stood, picked up her bag. You want to be the victim. Fine. You win. But you're going to wake up one day and realize you're just a sad man who lost control of his wife and couldn't handle it. I let that hang for a moment. Then I stood too. I didn't lose control, I said. I gave you the space to be who you really are. And now that I've seen it, I'm done. I walked her to the door. She didn't resist. Just paused on the threshold, looked around the house one last time, then turned and left. But before she reached her car, she said something that didn't fit the rest of her persona. Something I'm still trying to untangle. Be careful who you show that folder to, she said without turning around. Not everyone will believe you. Some people still like me. Then she got in and drove off. Just like that. But I wasn't scared. I knew what she meant. I knew she was already twisting the story somewhere else, with someone else, creating a new character to play. But I had the script now, and I had no intention of keeping it to myself. The next 48 hours were a blur of movement. I wasn't sleeping, barely eating, but I wasn't unraveling, I was mobilizing. Nathan and I spent most of that time in my study, laptops open, notes spread out like we were building a case file, because in a way we were. Only this wasn't for court. This was for clarity, for closure, for control. Because when someone rewrites your history behind your back, you don't just sit quietly and let the pages turn. She thought she'd left with the last word. She thought that folder was my version of closure. It wasn't. That folder was my introduction. So I started talking. First to her family. That one hurt. Her mother and I were close. Her sister even closer. They always saw me as the dependable one, the anchor. So when I asked for a video call, I didn't come in angry or vengeful. I came in with the calm of someone who's done hiding. I told them everything. Not theatrically. Just the facts. The timeline. The video. The lies. Her sister cried. Her mother went stone silent. I didn't ask them to take sides, I just asked them to know. Then I called our mutual friends. The ones who had seen us at dinners, birthdays, holidays. The ones she would eventually try to spin her version to. I gave them the truth first. Not in bitterness, but with evidence. I didn't want gossip. I wanted witnesses. But the most important call came next. Zoe. I asked if she could meet me somewhere public, neutral. We met at a cafe and she showed up looking like she'd aged 5 years in the past 3 days. When she sat down, she didn't even wait for the small talk. I believed her, she said. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I know, I said. You weren't the only one. She leaned in. Do you want to ruin her? That question sat between us like a loaded gun. No, I said. I want the truth to be louder than the lie. She nodded. Then, without me asking, she pulled out her phone and showed me something. Messages. From my wife. Sent after she left. Spinning a new story. He's trying to ruin me. He's obsessed. He's making up lies. If he contacts you, just ignore it. He's not well. Zoe looked at me. She's already rewriting everything. Of course she was. But that's when I realized something even more unsettling. She hadn't just prepared for this fallout. She'd planned for it. Long before she ever got caught, she had laid the groundwork. Little comments to friends, subtle shifts in tone, passive-aggressive suggestions that I was controlling, distant, cold. It wasn't damage control. It was narrative control. She didn't break the marriage. She burned the truth before anyone could see it. I left the cafe not angry, not heartbroken, but focused. More than I'd ever been in my life. Back at home, I made one final addition to the folder. A letter. One she'd never read, but one I needed to write. Not to her. To myself. A reminder. A record. A way to remember not what she did, but what I survived. It ended like this. She fooled everyone. But only for a while. And now she'll spend the rest of her life pretending not to remember the man who saw through her. I closed the folder. And just like that, I was done reacting. It was time to start acting. 3 more days passed. No contact. No sightings. Just echoes. I started waking up at 5. Not because I needed to. because my body had locked into this strange rhythm, like it was on high alert, like it knew there were still pieces of the story hiding in plain sight. I'd get up, pour black coffee, and sit at the dining room table where she used to sit with her laptop, writing emails that now read like short stories to different lovers, each more personalized than the last. That morning, a new piece arrived. Not a metaphor. A literal envelope. No sender. Inside was a printed letter. Typed. Not handwritten. It read, "You're not the only one she's hurt. You just might be the only one who cared enough to fight back. If you want the rest of the truth, look here." Below was an address. Local. In the city. Just a block off where she used to go for those fake Pilates classes on Thursdays. I stared at it for a long time. Could have been a prank. Could have been a trap. But something about the letter, the phrasing, the cold honesty told me it wasn't. It felt like someone else who had been scorched by the same fire and didn't want to burn alone anymore. I showed it to Nathan. He just nodded. "You going?" "Yeah." He didn't ask to come. We both knew this part was mine alone. The building was industrial, warehouse style, the kind you rent for creative space or pop-up events. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside, and for a second I thought I was in the wrong place. Then I saw the photos. Hundreds of them. Printed. Pinned to foam boards. Taped to walls. Stacked in folders on tables. All of her. Different outfits. Different men. Different cities. And at the center of it all, a man. Mid-40s. Slouched in a rolling chair. Tired eyes. He didn't look up right away. Just waved me in like he was expecting someone else. Then he turned, saw my face, and paused. "You're the husband," he said, like he already knew my name. "I guess so," I replied. He stood slowly, walked to one of the walls, pulled a photo off and handed it to me. Her, laughing in a restaurant booth. With him. "We were together for 6 months," he said. "Until she told me you were abusive and that she was scared to leave. I told her I'd protect her. Thought I was saving her." He pointed to another photo, her and Tyler, from the hotel in Miami. Turns out I was the side piece. She was seeing him the whole time. And probably others. I only found out when I followed her one night. Saw her with him. Saw her lie without blinking. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. He gave a bitter smile. "Because at first I thought I deserved it. Then I realized she doesn't just lie to get away with things. She lies to destroy. To keep people off balance. To keep herself feeling untouchable." He gestured to the room. This is what's left when someone like that touches your life. Documentation. Wreckage. Proof for yourself so you don't question your sanity later." I asked him why he'd sent the letter. "Why now?" He looked me dead in the eye. "Because you didn't break. You didn't beg. You fought back. And people like her, they hate that. They hate being seen." He gave me a drive, all the digital copies. He told me I could do what I wanted with them. Share them. Burn them. Use them. "I just wanted you to know," he said as I left, "that you're not the only ghost she tried to leave behind." Driving home, I didn't cry. Didn't scream. But something inside me finally settled. Like I just walked through the last haunted hallway of a house I never wanted to live in, and now I was locking the door behind me. I had the whole picture now, and I was finally free to decide what came next. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I parked in a quiet part of town by the lake, the place we used to go when things were simple. Before her masks. Before the chess game I didn't know I was playing. I sat in the car for a long time with the flash drive in my hand, thinking about what it meant to finally have the truth. To hold the whole ugly thing in the palm of my hand. But even as the answers settled around me like dust, one question still pulsed at the edge of everything. Why? Why me? What did I do to deserve this level of targeted destruction? It's not like we were perfect. I know that. Every couple has cracks. But I didn't lie. I didn't vanish into other people's arms. I didn't turn our life into a cover story. I didn't invent villains and put on the damsel dress for applause. So why? And then it hit me. It wasn't about what I did. It was about what I didn't do. I didn't give her chaos. I gave her calm, structure, a mirror that reflected who she really was, and she hated that. She needed to be the center of everything, needed the drama, the illusions, the worship, and I was never broken enough to make her feel like a savior. I was whole, steady, and that made me disposable. Back home, Nathan was already packing. He knew. He didn't ask. He just said, "It's time." And it was. I sat down at my desk and opened the flash drive. I didn't dive into the photos or videos. I already knew what they'd show. I opened the file folder labeled Witnesses. Inside were messages from other men. Men who, like me, had been pulled into her orbit, used, discarded. Some of them had families. Some had been conned out of money. A few, disturbingly, still wanted her back, like dogs who'd forgotten the bite. But one message stopped me cold. It was from a woman, not someone she dated, someone who had worked with her years ago before we even met. A former coworker who found out her fiancé had been seduced and destroyed by my wife back when she was barely 23. She wrote, "She doesn't just use people. She studies them. She memorizes what they need and becomes it. She's not in love with anyone, just in love with the game. You're lucky. You got out with your name. The rest of us didn't." It was that line, "in love with the game," that echoed in me the most, because suddenly everything made sense. The lies, the performances, the vanishing acts followed by teary-eyed returns. It was never about being loved. It was about being believed. That night, I wrote her a letter. Not to mail. Not to send. Just to write. It said, "You fooled me. You shaped yourself into my dream and waited until I stopped doubting it. Then you broke it. Not because I deserved it, but because you could. That's your gift, isn't it? The power to become anyone, say anything, leave without consequence. But here's what you didn't plan for, someone seeing you exactly as you are and walking away anyway." I burned the letter. It wasn't for her. It was for me. And for the first time since this all began, I slept. Not deeply. Not peacefully. But without the weight of her in my chest. And that was something. The following week was quieter than I expected. No phone calls. No new emails. No surprise appearances at my doorstep with crocodile tears and some revisionist version of events. She'd vanished truly this time, and I wondered if it was because she'd finally run out of lies or because she was already busy manufacturing a new self somewhere else. One more costume change, another audience. I wasn't waiting for her return, but I was ready for it. It came sooner than I thought. Friday afternoon. Rain tapping soft against the windows. Nathan had just left for work, and I was sorting through a pile of unopened mail when my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it for a few seconds, then answered. No words. Just silence on both ends. Then she spoke. "I heard what you've been doing." That voice, sharp, measured, just a hint of breathlessness, like she wanted to sound calm but couldn't quite get there. "Then you know I haven't even started," I said. A pause. Then a soft, humorless laugh. "You think this makes you powerful?" "No," I said. "It makes me free." Her voice sharpened. "You're ruining my life." There it was. The truth. The version of her stripped bare, not sorry, not reflective, just angry that the illusion was slipping through her fingers. Not at what she did, but at being caught. "You ruined your own life," I said. "I just made sure no one else had to believe the story you built on top of it. You don't get to decide how people see me. You decided that when you treated them like chess pieces." She sighed. Deep, exasperated. "You're just bitter. A bitter man who lost control." "You're right," I said. "I am bitter. Bitter that I believed you. Bitter that I gave years of my life to someone who saw that as leverage, not love." Then she said something so surreal, so off-script, it made me go still. "I'm pregnant." Just like that. 3 words. Like a grenade dropped in the middle of our wreckage. I didn't respond. Not right away. Because there's a moment when someone throws a lie so large you can't see the edges, where you have to stand still, squint into the smoke, and ask yourself if it's a trap or a test. "You're lying," I said quietly. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do," I said. "Because if you were pregnant, it would have been the first card you played, not the last." Another pause. Then finally, the admission I'd been waiting for since this all began. "I didn't think you'd turn on me like this." That was it. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I made a mistake." Just that. The indignation of someone who believed truly that no matter what she did, the people around her would stay orbiting her gravity. "You turned first," I said. She hung up. No goodbye. No threat. Just silence. I stood there for a long time after that. Not shaken. Not heartbroken. But done. And not the fake kind of done where you say it just to hear it. The real kind. The kind where the weight lifts, and you start to feel the space she used to occupy begin to empty. Not with grief, but with air. A week later, I finalized everything. Lawyer. Papers. Separation of assets. Quiet, clean precision. I didn't make a spectacle of it, didn't send her any dramatic parting words or grand declarations. I simply filed, signed, and moved forward like I should have the minute I saw that text from Tyler Blackheart. Closure didn't come with a bang, it came with paperwork and a quiet sense of relief. Nathan helped me pack the last box of her things. The only thing I kept was a framed photo of us from years ago, not because I missed it, but because I wanted to remember how easily someone can look like love and carry nothing behind their eyes but calculation. I tucked it into the back of a drawer, face down. Not to preserve it, just to mark it, like a scar. I didn't hear from her again. Not even a text. But I did hear about her. Zoe messaged me. She said she saw her at a bar downtown with a new guy, maybe mid-30s, clean-cut, clearly smitten. Said she looked radiant. Happy. Like someone on the opening scene of another performance. She's already rewriting the story, Zoe said. Told someone you were emotionally unstable and obsessed. That she had to escape. I laughed when I read it. Not because it was funny, but because it was textbook. The same lines. The same plot. Just a new co-star. I didn't correct it. Didn't call anyone. I didn't need to. Because this time I wasn't part of her story. I was outside it. Watching from a distance. Immune. But I did one last thing. I sent a message to every person whose name had been tied to her in that folder the man from the warehouse gave me. Every person who had been lied to, cheated on, used, manipulated. Some didn't respond. Some did. One man wrote back, I thought I was crazy. Thank you. That was it. That was enough. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It wasn't about her. It was about the people still inside the illusion. People still spinning in the web, not knowing which way was out. Maybe now they'd start to see the thread. The morning I signed the final paper, I sat on the porch and watched the sky go from steel gray to soft orange. The air was cold, but it felt clean. I realized then that healing doesn't feel like joy, it feels like weightlessness. Not because you've found something new, but because you've let go of something old that never belonged to you in the first place. So here's what I'll leave anyone reading this with, anyone who's going through something similar, staring down the wreckage of a love that turned into a lie. When someone lies that well, that deeply, that effortlessly, it's not a reflection of your weakness. It's proof of their emptiness. And walking away from that is the strongest thing you'll ever do. I didn't just survive her. I saw her, and I walked away with my name. She'll spend her life becoming someone new for everyone else. But I'll never have to become anything other than the man who finally said, no more.